Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. You are very welcome to the Tynes webinar this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Tonight, we are talking with Heath and Johnny from Equate Technologies, a leading provider of cybersecurity, risk, and security services in Australia, about cybersecurity, about automation, and about how an MSSP that has deep understanding of designing, implementing, optimizing information security solutions for incredible customers is partnering with Tynes to automate repetitive manual workflows, specifically in the EDR space. We've got a pretty interesting lineup for you today. The rough agenda is we're going to be talking a little bit about Equate. We'll be talking about Microsoft Defender. We'll be talking about Crowdstrike. We'll be talking about enriching customer stories, and we'll leave loads of time for questions at the end for people. A couple of quick items of housekeeping before we dig in. We'll have loads of time for Q&A at the end. I think if you're watching on LinkedIn, there should be a way to ask a question right now. You can ask a question now. If it makes sense, we'll bring it into the webinar and we'll answer it in time. Somebody will also be monitoring Twitter. So for everybody that's watching on Twitter today, if you post a question, we'll be able to, again, see it. We can add it to the screen and answer it in time. And lastly, we're going to be sharing some links. So everything that you're doing today, you can do for free in Tynes pretty quickly and pretty easily. So we'll be sharing one or two links along the way. But if you want to sign up, tynes.com, there's a sign up button at the top. Or if you click one of the links or follow one of the links, you'll be able to follow along during the webinar. But we really hope you enjoy the webinar today. I think it's probably good to get to know everybody here. So let's go for a quick round of introductions. Johnny, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Hi everyone. I am one of the senior security analysts in the SOC, based out of the Brisbane office of Equate. I've been with Equate for just over 2.5 years now. Primarily, I work on the EDR platforms, Microsoft Azure and Office 365 tenancy for our customers, and also vulnerability management platforms. And obviously, we all participate in IR and also I field technical escalations as they arise within the SOC team. Previous to Equate, I've been working with the health industry, onboarding new hospitals from an IT viewpoint, and also the same from the hotel industry. Prior to that, I was a system administrator for a global mining company. So yeah, overall, I've been fortunate enough to have had some exposure to a range of different industries and their respective technologies. And since being at Equate, I've really enjoyed the progression of the SOC capability so far. It's such an interesting and fast-paced environment at the moment, and I'm really looking forward to growing what we do within the SOC capability and our peers here at Equate. And yeah, as it says on the slide, I'm a bit of a mountain bike nut, so I like to get out mountain biking and attend mountain biking events whenever I can. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Nice. Welcome, Johnny. Heath, do you want to introduce yourself?
No worries, Thomas. Hi, everyone. So my name's Heath Moody. I'm another one of the senior analysts here at Equate Technologies. I mainly do our cyber threat intelligence capability. Absolutely love it. I think it's the bee's knees. I'm also a massive NBA fan. I'll be jumping on the playoffs right after this call. And then also a massive strategy game nerd. That's pretty much me. I'm not as cool as Johnny with my awesome background. So that's me. Over to you, Thomas.
Yes, I'm also very jealous of being able to not being able to call myself a mountain bike nerd. I need to up my description game. So I'm Thomas. I'm one of the founders of Tynes. I spent about 10 years working in information security before starting Tynes. So in threat intel, in incident response and investigations, security infrastructure, and a few other fields. Right now in Tynes, run the customer success team. So post sales engineering. But mostly making sure that all of our customers get the most value out of the platform as possible, and that's partly how I've really learned to partner and to work with these great folks at Equate. I'm also a little bit of a history nerd, but I'm slightly shy about that now, considering how we've got an NBA lover and a mountain bike lover. So I'll stop there. Folks, I want to learn a little bit more about Equate. I know you've been working with Tynes for about 18 months at this point, but do you want to tell us a little bit about what Equate does and I suppose, what some of your services are?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, here at Equate Technologies, we essentially provide professional and managed services within the security operations realm. This includes security and risk consulting, cloud infrastructure design, vulnerability management, identity and access management, all the way through to complete managed SOC services. We provide SOC and security services to a range of companies in industries such as education, banking, transport, logistics, and mining. So, as I'm sure with everyone potentially on this, we've been particularly busy in the SecOps space, especially with the pandemic in play the last couple of years. All of a sudden, these companies we looked after had additional access and security requirements that we were able to take care of and facilitate. And then coupled with that, we get a lot of new clients coming on looking for managed security solutions. It all just makes it a very exciting time to be in the security space, really.
Absolutely, it's fortunately or unfortunately a very interesting time to be in the security space, especially
Crazy.
Yeah, there's always stuff to learn, and fortunately always job security as well. So anybody that's watching out, if you're looking for any jobs or looking for a great MSSP, you know where to look. So I think today what we want to talk to you a little bit about is about how Equate are automating their own EDR incidents using Tines. And you can see over the right hand side, Tines has improved our service offering by allowing the team to make decisions in minutes that used to take an hour. The way they've done that is by automating a huge amount of the repetitive manual tasks involved in investigating alerts from their incredible customers. Before we dive into those, we'll try to spend as much time in demos as possible. I just want to tell you a little bit about Tines and why we started it. So I spent 10 years working in InfoSec before starting Tines, and it was really there that we felt the need for the platform. So the same as most security teams, we were just slammed with alerts. We couldn't keep on top of them easily, and we found it really hard to keep staff when those staff were spending their time creating Jira tickets or creating tickets in the Hive, or copying and pasting IPs in VirusTotal or a threat intel tool. So we looked at a huge amount of automation platforms. We didn't really like any of them, and we started Tines to be the automation platform that we wished we could have had when we were working in InfoSec. And that's what we'll be showing today. We'll be showing how you can get started and how you can automate your tasks using Tines. Before I do that, though, I want to just talk a tiny little bit about the technology behind it, just so that we understand. There's really 3 different concepts that you need to understand. First, these are actions, events, and stories. Actions are just those building blocks in the automation story. The events are when those, so you can think of that as creating an issue, reading an email, sending an email, control flow, or maybe a data manipulation action. There's only 7 action types, and you'll see those as we go through. When an action runs, it emits an event. That just means that it's the ID of the ticket created in Jira, etc. And there's also this concept of stories or workflows or SOPs. So everything you see is going to be its own story. So with Tines, you can sign up. You can get 3 completely free automation stories. If you go to tines.com, just sign up right now, and you'll be able to play along with some of the stories as well. These are the 7 building blocks. But realistically, what I want to do is I want to spend all our time diving in and just showing you the platform and showing you what the folks at Equate have done. So the way we're going to do this actually at the start is I might hit this slide first. So just talk a little bit about the about EDR detections and some of the goals behind it, and show you what the platform looks like. So maybe Heath, do you want to talk a tiny little bit about the goals of an EDR detection?
Yeah. So with Tines, and the title really does speak to this. We really do have infinite flexibility here. I know that's super corny, but it is 100% fact. But with that, and with any time you have a broad scope of a thing that you can do, to really get it going, you need to have quite a tight scope and a tight set of goals. And when everything we do with Tines, we want to enable that human decision at the end. And we do that via a variety of different means, but at its core, everything we do has to come back to that first initial point. The enrichment and scalability within that are massively important for a business, for an MSSP overall. It definitely comes down to that enable and human enrichment, and then the enrichment and the scalability are just great add-ons.
Perfect. So the way we're going to show this, we're going to start with a very beginner story. We'll move to a more advanced story, and then we'll move to an actual production story that Equate have working for them. So to start, I want to show this real beginner story. This is at its most basic level what you want from an automation platform. So what this is doing is, this is the Time storyboard. These are the actions. You can see there's just 2 different action types here. A HTTP request action that connects with another tool, and an event transformation action that just modifies some data. And the way Times works, just to show you, just drag an action on, connect it up, and then you configure it over here on the right-hand side. We've got a whole load of templates over here for the vast majority of the common tools that you want to deal with. Maybe it's IntelliL, maybe it's Netscope, maybe it's Snowflake or /Next or Showdown, whatever you want to do. Drag on an action, connect it up, and then you can configure it really easily over the right-hand side. What this story here is doing then, this is a very basic EDR detection story. So we're dealing with Microsoft Defender, and what we're doing is we're connecting. You can see we've got multiplayer, so Heath is following along in real time. We've got, and you too can follow along in real time. Nice. With the basic Microsoft Defender story, by hitting go to times.xyz/defender, you'll be able to import that into your own tenant and just play around with it and see what it looks like. But what this is doing is it's basically getting the Defender detections by hitting the Microsoft Security Center API. And you can see it's got a simple filter. Status is new, severity is not equal to informational, and it's expanding the evidence. Nothing complicated here. And then it's got a credential. What we're doing is, in this case, we're running it on we're running it manually, but normally we'd run this on a schedule. So we schedule this to run every couple of minutes. So just click here, repeat every day or repeat every hour, repeat every few minutes. And what it's going to do when this runs is it's going to basically fetch new Microsoft Defender detections. So that's what the action looks like. The event then is the data that's been fetched from Microsoft Defender or from Security Center. And you can see here there was actually only 1 detection fetched. And this is a Windows Defender antivirus detection. The threat family name is Mimikatz. The category is credential access. And the title is Mimikatz Credential Theft Tool. And if I look at my description, I can see Mimikatz hack tool was detected on this device. I can also see the computer name. I can see some MITRE techniques. There are none here. There's no comments. There is a little bit of evidence associated with it as well. But basically, there's including a SHA-56, which is really nice in the file name. So I've got actually quite a bit of evidence here that I might want to deal with. But if we're thinking about, I suppose, what Heath just said there, there's a few steps that we want to take here. The first thing we probably want to do is we definitely want to create a ticket to make a human decision. But before we do that, we probably want to deduplicate so that we're not dealing with the same incident over and over and over again. So that if if Mimikatz gets detected on the same laptop 20 times, we don't really want to see that at least for another day, for example. So what I'm doing here, first of all, I've got the detections. The second thing I have is I'm exploding those detections into individual detections. And then that's taking that array and exploding it. And then I'm deduplicating. So to deduplicate, all I've done is I've selected that path, just that detection ID. And I've said, just don't show me it again for 86,400 seconds. So for a day. The next thing I'm doing then is I'm building detection. This actually strictly isn't necessary. I'll show you the create issue in Jira action. All this is doing is hitting the Jira domain. This is saved so that we're able to pass through Jira domains really easily. And I'm basically creating an issue, a security incident issue in the project key ED. And I'm passing through some basic details. You see these pills here. This is basically data from previous events. So if you wanted to send an email with some data, for example, here you just drag on an email action and be able to pass data through from all the previous events really easily, like issue created in Jira. Here, create issue in Jira .body.key, and that will send an email to me with details about that issue that was created. But here I'm passing through just some data that's from build detection.summary. The reason I'm doing this is to normalize some data, and we'll find out a little bit more about that later. This is literally just the data that I'm passing through. So this is not too complicated, but a reasonably nice table that we've created in some Jira Markdown containing links, priority, title, detection, source, category. So this story doesn't take very long to build. It's like very simple. You're just getting the detection, deduplicating it, and then creating a reasonably nice ticket for our analysts to see all this information in Jira so that they can make a decision pretty quickly. And that's kind of the name of the game. Get as much information in front of your analysts as possible so they can make a decision. Johnny, do you want to share your screen and show what that detection looks like?
Yes, sure. Yeah, so this is the exact ticket from that story Thomas was just showing. So you get the title of the detection, you get the alert overview, and basically this is where the power of that build detection action comes into play, where you can format a ticket in your case management system, in this case Jira, in the way that you want for your analyst. So we've got all the critical information we've chosen via the API and put it in a more legible form. So we can see the user in this case, and this will be not real world data as I invoked this detection using the Atomic Red Team PowerShell tools for the purpose of this demo. But we can see the asset name and then the other critical parameters and indicators that we may want to investigate on further. So, and we also, define the services and also the priorities and whatnot in Jira as well, so that any escalation processes are then followed accordingly, depending on like if you're using automation or just via the rules from that particular customer in Jira.
This is awesome. I also remember one particular incident during a proof of concept where we detected, I think it was an emo detection like halfway through the POC. We're like, whoa, hold on a second, you need to jump on this. We had a real real kind of like heart stopping moment. Turns out it was absolutely fine. It was somebody on their team that was testing, but at least we did the right thing, called it out. But yeah, glad this isn't a real Mimikatz detection. There's loads of really, really useful information here, Johnny. Like, I suppose if you're trying to do this manually, how long do you think this would even take you to create this, this Jira ticket a couple of times a day?
Yeah, well, that's it. Whilst nowadays the API is really mature, for the analyst to go into Security Center themselves and look for these detections and decipher everything into something human readable as such, would take an order of minutes, just to sort of get a determination what's actually happened. So this saves a lot of time where we format what we want and we present it to the analyst within a minute or less of actually having the detection event come through. So it's immensely powerful to just collate the information the way you want and present it to the analyst in a relatively immediate form.
Yeah, and it's going to be correct every single time. It's going to get into Jira pretty much instantly, and it's going to you're going to have a record of it as well, so you can correlate against that. You can say, hey, have we seen this detection before? Do we have any other tickets associated with this device, etc., etc.
That's right.
You've got the exact reason for I don't need to pitch folks on the webinar for a case management system, but the exact reason for having a case management system. But I think though that, like, we call this a beginner story. It's obviously it's only a couple of different actions, a couple of different steps. If we're thinking about a more advanced story, what are some of the other things that you'd be like, what, this is the information that I want? Because I know that for an organization such as yourselves, you want as much information to make as accurate a decision. So what are the data might you want, and what might that look like?
Yeah, so when the analyst gets a detection such as this, they're not typically going to stop just here and then take this detection at face value and make a determination right now. They're going to pivot to other tools that most common MSSPs will use, and that'd be for let me just bring this story up here. So stuff like pivoting to VirusTotal or searching the hash in something else, or URL scan, or just basic context enrichment you would do as part of an investigation. So if I can just demonstrate this story now, Thomas, or should give an overview of this one. Yeah.
Definitely.
So this is what we've sort of just called an intermediate one, where the next step along, where in this instance we're using a different EDR platform, Crowdstrike, but you'll see it's very much the same as what Thomas demonstrated before, where the flow is you are getting the detection and expanding the detection event in the context of the platform, and then deduplicating the event so you're not doubling up on detections, especially when you're running these stories as a schedule. So we have some basic error handling as well, which is quite important. So if this is a production story, for example, you want to know if there's an error with a HTTP GET request, which will prevent you being notified from any detections at a customer's environment. And yeah, as I said, just like the Defender story, we have an API endpoint and then a credential down for this particular customer. You'll notice the difference in logic here for CrowdStrike is that they have value-add licensing add-ons where you can pay for Overwatch, and basically what Overwatch is that it's another analyst with eyes on glass for CrowdStrike. So if there is an Overwatch detection, there's already been a level of triage that's happened. So that's where we will prioritize those events, for example, to go straight through to our case management system and wake someone up, essentially, if it's not within business hours. So what do we want to do more? We want to enrich the detection automatically. So when it gets to our case management system, we have even deeper context of what's gone on for the analyst to make a determination of what steps to take next. And in this case, we are sending the event to recorded future for further enrichment, and I believe Heath is going to demonstrate that in a little while, just after this. And in this example, we have a vulnerability management solution called Nucleus, which our customers, we deploy a scanner which inventories their assets and does regular vulnerability management collation across their environment. So we can then enrich the information of the JIRA ticket based on the last vulnerability scan of the asset. So it's reaching out to Nucleus and saying, hey, what vulnerabilities, or just give some info about this asset according to what you think. And then based on these parameters and the findings, the criticality is determined, and that can be contextual to the client or the platform or the service that you need to offer. And then the powerful build detection event transformation, where we collate everything into the format for JIRA to make everything look presentable and readable. And then we would spit out a ticket. So if I was to demonstrate what a ticket would look like in this example.
This is awesome, and it's getting even a little bit, a lot closer to the information that you actually want. Now that you've got some threat intel information, now that you've got information about the asset, you can really make a much more determined decision about whether this is a real threat and whether or not you need to be super worried.
That's right, and we can see this will be a similar detection event where CrowdStrike actually blocked the process. It was command line, which means it could be anything really. And you can see the contextual command line here in this example was that Atomic Red Team invoke package that I triggered this detection with. So it gives you obviously the scenario and technique, and then all the other ISE values that you will be interested in for further investigation. And this is where the enrichment comes in really for this ticket. This is a new table from following on from the simple detection ticket, where it's reached out to Nucleus, it's checked the asset, and it says, hey, I know this asset is part of this group. Right now, it is a public-facing asset, which is important in the context of what to do next. And then it lists the count of vulnerabilities that it is aware of for this asset. So at this point, the analyst could also pivot to Nucleus and get any further information there as they need it. Now, the threat intelligence enrichment is via the recorded future sender story, which was first. However, because this is just command prompt that it was sending through, essentially, recorded future isn't going to waste time collating information about the hash value for common command prompts. So in this example, it's not got any more valuable information to provide us, but it is very rich, this the data that comes out of recorded future, and Heath will demonstrate that in a little bit. So that's just two options to enrich a detection, and we obviously use a lot more in other production stories, but it's just an intro to really the flexibility that you can have when using Tines to pivot to other platforms, really.
Absolutely, and each of those, and I know we can we'll be looking at those a little bit later as well. But each of those are actually just a single action. Whether it's a send a story where you're sending off to completely different story that Heath has set up to enrich against recorded future, or whether it's just Nucleus, which is literally just a single action that's fetching all of that useful information for you. And I know you're saying that it's command prompt recorded future doesn't want to it's saying actually that's not important because it's it's totally legit. That's just as important information, knowing that it's that compared, like it's, hey, that's actually live off the land tool use. It's just as important to have that as it is to find out, hey, this is actually a really bad threat that's 48 of 67 or 82 or whatever on virus total or something like that. It's really important to have that information as well, just as context, because that's what the analyst is going to be asking for, or going to be pasting their copying and pasting that hash into pretty much straight away. What I'm really conscious of here, though, is like you've shown a few different things. One is you've shown Defender and Crowdstrike. That's awesome, but that means that you've got two different tools that you have to normalize these detections across. But the second thing is, I know that with Equate, you're not just dealing with. I think a lot of the folks that are listening are probably just dealing with one. Well, maybe they're dealing with two tools, but they may just be dealing with one. One environment or maybe two environments. But with you, you've got a lot of different customers and a lot of different environments to deal with. Like presumably there's multiple different CrowdStrike instances, multiple different, unless I can't imagine you purchase all those tools for them yourself and then provide it. But if that case, then how do you deal with how do you deal with a bring your own license and bring your own tools where you don't, like, if I'll share my screen for 1 second. 1 second here. So just to talk about here, like, enabling, what we've shown about is enabling the human decision and enriching. So enhancing the information provided by EDR tools by providing customer data, Equate data, threat intel, and vulnerability data. But I think the thing that I'm trying to get at is that it's really hard to scale this for an organization like you, because what I can't imagine you want to do is, take this and then just copy paste for each of your customers. That doesn't really scale. And then if you want to make a change, or if something's not working, you're putting it in 10 different places, right? And that's even worse for this. They may, well, yeah. So it's better license for us. So I don't mind if you want to go that route. But this isn't how this. It feels like this isn't how you should do it, right? So how do you approach that challenge?
Yeah, and that's the problem is in the question, like scaling. It's always going to be an issue. If you want to be competitive and effective, you need to be able to scale. And it's no different here when we want to support multiple customers, even using the same platforms or different platforms. So what we have done is we have created a customer resource. And yeah, that's the example there. So a customer resource is really just a blob and a template that we would use for every customer that we would onboard. We declare, different variables and fields based on the context of what platforms they have and what they have access to. So this allows us to dynamically interact with each event based on what platform we have declared for this customer. So in this example, we can see we have fictitious companies, by the way, called Dingo Inc. We've said their Jira project is DI. They're on an 8x5 next business day support agreement, and then we have the declared variables for like their 365 tenant name, the reference to their credential that's stored in Tines, their unique Nucleus project ID for vulnerability management, and then their Microsoft Defender credential for interrogating alerts. And we can see in this instance they are using the Joe Sandbox private sandbox cloud. They are a recorded future customer, true or false, and then contextual vulnerability watch lists for them. So that is relevant to their technology stack or their industry vertical that we've developed for them, is that unique CV monitoring code there. So what that allows us to do is then essentially in a complex story, which we'll demonstrate in a second, you can say for each customer basically where their platform is CrowdStrike, send the event down this time, or for each customer where their recorded future customer, then progress this way. So that's the power and resources where you can have a single story with multiple actions that you have on a schedule, and then depending on the event that comes through, you can make you can get the enriched content you want based on the platform that's in context to the client itself. This is a second example, another fictitious company where you can see the differing things you can have. Obviously, 24/7, which affects if an analyst will get woken up or not, if it's a certain priority. And then in this instance, they are a CrowdStrike Sandbox customer, and excuse me, obviously a CrowdStrike customer with the absence of the Microsoft Defender credential there. So, and all the rest of the variables are as per the previous customer. So, yeah, this is the powerful resource configuration that we use to across all our stories, where we've templated it so whenever a new customer comes on, we populate this as a first step, and then set about setting up the credentials for that particular customer.
So that means that, like, when a new customer comes on, you could get, I don't know, a hypothetical Wallaby family, and all of a sudden you're, all of a sudden to onboard them, into this story that we've talked about. The only thing you need to do is add in like one basic, Jira blob, or one basic blob of some information, and then you're kind of all good to go. You don't need to do any more configuration.
Yeah, that's right. And you might get a customer where their mail management system or the EDR platform was one that you don't currently have, but it's in your benefit to then develop that story with the templates. And as long as the platform has a mature API, Tynes can interrogate and interact with it just easily. So you would then create a template story, and then you're ready for future customers who would use that respective platform as well.
Nice. Do you want to show that? We'd love to see it.
We should have added more Australian animals in.
Yeah, definitely. Good. That's
really challenged Thomas's hardcore Irish accent against a hardcore Australian accent. I think we missed that ball, but that's all right. Go ahead, Johnny.
Is that my screen? I think that's someone else. Yeah, sweet. All right, so this is a combined EDR detection story. So on the left-hand Tyne, we see this is what we've declared as the Microsoft Defender side, and then on the right-hand side, we've declared this as the CrowdStrike side. So a lot of it will look familiar to the previous two stories we've said, but this is in a combined capacity where it's basically customer agnostic based, but it will determine where to go based on the resource that we were talking about. So the first event is an explode customers event, which essentially just grabs the resources, which is, for example, those two customers are the only ones that are in there in this example, as an object to a variable, which can then be referenced from here on. So if they are a Defender customer, it'll go on this side. If CrowdStrike customer, this side. And then the events themselves with error handling, obviously, are very much the same. You have the detection indicator expansion, and then the enrichment, which follows the criticality determination, and then the powerful build detection actions, and create the respective issue in Jira. And then I've just unlinked this for now for the purpose of the demo, but when it creates the issue in your case management system in production, this actually just marks the detection in their relevant platform as in progress and comments on it as picked up by Tynes for this purpose. So that's the power here with a combined story. And I'm actually going to run this.
Run it live, Johnny.
Are we ready to go?
The demo gods.
Yeah, that's right. So we should see now the actions
boom
firing off down their respective sides. So we can see the explode customers piece if I was to look at the event, and hopefully this isn't too small for everybody. Zoom in. No, I can't do that. The individual customer, we can see there's in this event, it was the Dingo Inc. customer. The next event, it would have been Convict Club. And those two events were picked up from this and sent down their respective time. So that's how, if you have this running on a schedule, you can just have a combined story to do this kind of detection management. So it's created the tickets already. So we can see the ticket values, and yeah, it's all been enriched, and we should have a ticket ready for the analyst to review. And I think, Heath, is this where you want to demonstrate that?
This is. So if we're going to go ahead and switch over to my screen, we'll just want to quickly talk about the recorded future piece here. And what this is essentially is the send to story. And what this basically does is if this will send the data that it gets from above and will send it to an entirely different story, which is this one here, or I can get there simply by clicking on the event and clicking on the open new tab. And my internet is very slow because we live in Australia, a third world country. So we'll go to the original one, and we can see here we've got the recorded future story. And essentially what this is doing is, for those that don't know, Recorded Future is a cyber threat intelligence company. One of the products they offer is they have quite a rich data set that they allow you to query via their platform or via API. What we're doing here is we're querying it via API. And we're essentially getting in the actions from the previous story via the webhook. And then we're having a quick check if it is an RF customer or not, with some pre-designated fields if they are not. But essentially what we're doing is we're doing a very clean split based off some very simple IOCs here. So we've obviously got our IPs, domains, and hashes. And what this will do is they'll come down, they will search Recorded Future in the appropriate place. And then from there, it will enrich it at that Recorded Future end. And then it will send back the required data. So we can see here for this one, it's come down as the hash not found, and it's sent back that data that we had set. Now, the reason why we have multiple trigger points here is because of the Recorded Future API. And when it sends back information on a hash that it doesn't have information on, it will send back a 404 as an error. Now, essentially, that's not actually a true error. It's actually just a, let's call it a tweak within the API. But due to the flexibility within Tines, we can take that failure and still process the information correctly and push out the information that we do want to have, which will then bring us back to the story, and then that information gets sent down again into the Nucleus piece. And again, for Nucleus, just a vulnerability management platform that we store scan data in. So take, for example, like a Nessus scanner that you have employed in your environment. When you scan your environment, we store the information within Nucleus, and then we can query it using their API as well. So what you've got here is obviously the Nucleus piece, the customer ID for that Nucleus client, and then just the asset name in which we're extracting out the very specific asset name from the original EDR detection, which we grab, as you can kind of see there. So then what we do from there is we then build the priority again, like what Johnny's talked about. And then again with the build detection priority, however, on this left-hand side here, we've got a really good example. And again, this does initially seem complicated, but I assure you it is not, where we've got our initial table that we've seen before. And then we have a very simple loop here where essentially due to some of the, we've made the very pragmatic decision with the Defender story compared to the CrowdStrike story, it will send back very specific information based off its original piece. So if you only have an IP detection, it may only give you back a few of these fields. However, if you are getting a field that has nothing in it consistently, it's quite messy and ugly for the analyst. So what we're doing here is we're essentially saying is, hey, if in the evidence field, the SHA-256, if that's empty with that little symbol there, basically don't show, right? So then when you do get a SHA value, that won't be empty, and then it will build that within the table. And it allows you to be really dynamic with your tables based off a very dynamic alerting system like what Defender is, through the beauties of their truly terrible API. And then you have our vulnerability stuff down here that has been seen before. And then what that looks like and we'll use the tickets that we had before, emitted from 6 minutes ago, coming into here, into the body. We can see it's EIT 112, and I'll just simply go up here and just go to the live one, EIT 112, which is that one there. And you can see very similar again. We've got our ticket. The analyst has no idea what's happened in the background. They don't need to. They just need to focus on what's in front of them here. And again, we've got some really good external IP information. Again, the CMD.exe is the executing behavior that has been detected. We can continue down. Again, a very, very normal command line. Don't worry if you see that in your environment, totally fine. And again, the vulnerability piece here, just for this demo environment. I'm not too sure why this hasn't showed up, but I'm pretty sure it's to do with the demo environment. And then that is pretty much that. We've got our recorded future data again. We've also got our the ticketing correct again. Everything that we want, pre-built, set. Management's happy, analyst is happy. Everyone gets to make a really, really quick decision based off this and pivot from where they need to go. They can go straight into CrowdStrike via this if they need to make that further jump into that.
I love it. This is such a rich ticket, but also just like so flexible as well that you can see that because you've, I suppose, normalized all the data and you've got it in such a clear form. It feels like if you wanted it to be pretty easy to support a SentinelOne, a Carbon Black, a Silencer, whatever, it's as Cybereason as customers, request those, right?
Essentially, right. Well, yeah, you can very quickly look at it. Pretty much all EDRs, they follow a very similar process where they want you to get a detection. There'll be some form, sometimes there'll be a more expanded version of that detection. Then we're simply just expanding out the behaviors that triggered that detection. And then from there, we're getting a bunch of other type of detections within that piece that we can pivot off. Then we're just enriching it, getting a criticality, and then creating a ticket. I know that sounds very easy when you say it like that. It's just that easy. But yeah, it is that easy.
Really awesome. I suppose a super powerful, incredible use case. Delighted that you've shown it to us today. And can I ask, like, it still feels like that's obviously that's advanced, and there's a huge amount of work that's gone into it, but it still feels like there's more that you can do. So the thing about Tines that we say is, like, your stories, they're never, like, you deploy them, you can leave them for days, weeks, months, years, but at the same time, sometimes you're like, actually, I find myself doing this afterwards. I always find myself looking up that hash in VirusTotal, or I almost find myself like blocking the IP, or I almost find myself wanting to run a memory dump or something like that. What are some of the next steps that you see yourselves doing for these stories?
Yes, that's a really good point, particularly with a lot of this enrichment side. It really can go wherever you want it to, and you can stop pretty much wherever you want to stop, right? So that's kind of why at the start we stressed that, hey, there is so much to do here that you really do need to pick a state and go to it. And we were really happy with that. But our next phase, if we want to switch back to my screen, we have kind of our second or third, I don't even know what version this is, probably about 6 or 7, right? But we can see here we've got a chunk of that previous story above that I've taken from just my development environment, and we're essentially, what we're looking to do here is analyze this very preset and very clean hash file here, and we're looking to just, oh god, demo gods, there it goes. There it goes. And we're essentially, instead of relying on the one source of data, and anyone that works in CTI will know that you really don't want to stick to just one source of intelligence, particularly for your enrichment. Obviously, the more sources you have, the better, but you do obviously have to kind of pick your use case in regards to how deep you want to go into that field. Moving forward, we want to move towards a 3 minimum at best, where we've got recorded future, we've got our own internal data set here for MSSP, and then we've also got the VirusTotal Interestingly enough, we're actually using a VirusTotal API via the Recorded Future Extended API here, which is quite a clean API. But then also we have the VirusTotal one if we need to go even further into that, right? But then again, we've got our multiple triggers, and essentially what these are doing is they are just checking from a regex point if the HTTP equals 200, which is a really, really simple and easy piece. And then what we're doing here is we're imploding all three of the events. So we've got 3 events here. Instead of having 3 individual events, we want to combine them all into one. So we implode there. And then we simply build our results out. And so then what that ends up looking like, and again, the demo gods, beautiful. Look at that. We've got our info. We've got some internal MISP data on it that we've seen it. We've got 2 attributes to it. We've got some MITRE ATT&CK stuff. And then again, we've got that VirusTotal link that we might want to pivot to. But the reason why, and again, we want to do this is to enhance that human decision again, to give them the most accurate and contextual decision and timely decision. So we can see here that if we had have just been with the Recorded Future set, it is risky. 67 4 risk rules. They dictate it's malicious as well. And we've got our link if we want to pivot back to it. However, if we come back to the VirusTotal, we can see here they've got obviously quite a larger set of risk rules that have been triggered here, particularly from that endpoint piece. So this might further increase our escalation here, and we can immediately pivot to it if we so choose to from within the ticket. And so that's that, and that's kind of the beauty of where we want to go with this. There's 70 other different things we want to do here, but for the sake of time, we'll leave it there. Over to you, Thomas.
That's awesome. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I think just showing just how easy it is. That's like to integrate VirusTotal is just another API call. To integrate MISP is just another API call. To integrate whatever other tool you want in there is, it's very, very easy and super fast to do. And so thanks for
an API, you can use it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't API, to be honest, you can use it.
So as well as like the where to from now and the enrichment piece that Heath just demonstrated, the simple next steps that we do in production and what we can build upon if you need to in the EDR piece is follow on prompts and actions from your case management ticket. So as you said, Thomas, is if you find you're always doing something after the fact, you get a detection, you might want to streamline that in the form of an automated next action. So you can introduce prompts, which are just like triggers in a time story. And for example, in the context of this story, we could have on the JIRA ticket at the bottom, it could be click here if false positive, click here to mark as resolved. And then what that would do is send a webhook back to the time story and then follow a different time of flow, which would then comment on the JIRA ticket saying analyst has marked this as false positive. It will then reach out to the API and change the status of the detection as per that trigger. And further to that, like if you know that you've got a cluster of hosts in the OT environment, which you get a critical detection for, you could have a prompt to say, isolate this host in CrowdStrike. So one-click actions is what you can expand upon from here. And then in the defender side, you can also have a one-click action to collect an investigation package, which is usually a first step when you're investigating an asset from a dependent viewpoint, for example. Or for CrowdStrike and Defender, you can have a one-click action to perform memory dump, and then it will comment on the ticket, like saying memory dump initiated on the asset at this time. So that's the power of what you can do as long as you have mature APIs to work with. The follow-up actions is what we would expand upon.
I also love that, like, this is the sort of thing that you're able to offer to every single one of your customers very, very easily, that you build this out and all of a sudden it's available to, all of your CrowdStrike or every single Equate customer that's using CrowdStrike saying, hey, here's the next thing that we're doing. We're now auto-isolating your assets, or we're now, instantly dumping memory or creating an investigation pack, etc. It's a real incredible service, and it's obviously through Tines, but through the use of these great stories, and through the use of these APIs that CrowdStrike and Defender and other tools have made available. So it's awesome. Folks, I think that we're coming close on time, so we might open it up to see are there any questions from the audience. While we're doing that, I might ask, just one or two questions of my own. So I suppose the first is, you've shown us a lot about EDR. What else have you done with Tines?
Some of the key stories we use, Heath, add any that I may not remember, but vulnerability notifications, so specific to customers' tech stacks and their environments or the industry vertical. So basically just intelligence on what is happening or relevant to their particular tech stack. Alerts from different SIEMs, so Splunk and Elastic, where any alerts that are generated from these SIEM platforms are enriched if needed, and then formatted and presented in a way we would expect, similar to what you've just seen in the Jira case management example. Suspicious traffic hitting firewalls, and enriching IP data via platforms like Grey Noise. So you might get a lot of hits from a particular IP address that the firewall doesn't particularly like. It'll grab that event, enrich the IP address, and then present it in a ticket for the analyst to do further determinations on.
I mean, IOC automatic ingestion from within the ticket that strips and formats it absolutely bang on for the analyst every single time. So there's no errors. We've got the phishing piece. How much time you got to TK?
Like only a couple minutes here, but yeah, no, it's great.
20 going.
It's so great to see, and it's always great to see you coming up with new ideas, and then it's like, hey, can we do this? We're like, I think we can, and then a week or two later, you're like, here's our first pass of the story. It's been a lot of fun working and seeing you build those out. I don't see any more questions, so what I might ask is I suppose just one one other one, which is like, you're obviously growing fast as a company. What advice would you have for other either people in the MSSP space or other people that are starting out on their journey of building detections in regards to automation?
I might jump in quickly here, but I think the have a look to build a minimal viable product, and then enrich on that. You can quickly fall into the forever scope creep and just wanting to consistently build until you get to the point where you've got nothing. But no, if you get to the minimal viable product, you'll then quickly understand that there's other queries and things you need to do. So for example, a great one here is looking to build a minimal viable product for, say, the Microsoft Defender stuff. I dare say you're going to struggle with the Azure and MS Graph API permissions. Anyone who's ever touched that knows deeply that is a trouble. Johnny, do you want to add something there as well, mate?
For EDR perspective, just know the platform. Obviously, the APIs are very mature at this point. As much as Microsoft does their best to confuse you with their conflicting documentation, which I think all three of us have had many discussions about, but getting a list of everything you can query, it doesn't mean you necessarily should query. Just being targeted with the information that you want, and then, as you mentioned, build on it from there. But the power of pivoting is really what makes it worthwhile. Like our most mature story is probably the suspicious email analysis story, and we don't need to go over that because I think you've had other seminars highlighting that. But from there we pivot to everything from Splunk, Elastic, different sandboxes, and all sorts, where there's header analysis, extracting IP addresses from email addresses, and checking the domain credibility, and then all of that information is presented in the ticket to an analyst. So you start small and build up to a point where you get like enough information but not too much.
Awesome. Folks, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. That's all we've got time for, but again, thank you for joining us. And if anybody has any more questions, you can contact us or contact, I suppose, Heath, Johnny, what's the best way to find out more about Equate?
LinkedIn or using Google.
Using Google. Okay, complicated domain name. All right, thank you, folks, and yeah, have a great evening.
Thanks very much, TK. Appreciate it, mate.
Thanks, Thomas.
See you guys.